HannaTalk.
What's going on, everybody? Simon here. Welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone's doing fantastic. In, in case you didn't notice, obviously I'm wearing the Batman shirt, but this has got nothing to do with Batman. This is all about Star Wars because we just got some really amazing news that Star Wars fans, myself included, have been waiting for a long, long time. So let's get right into it, shall we? So if you guys have absolutely no idea what's going on, effectively Dave Filoni, who's been one of the people involved in Star Wars for a long, long time, has now been promoted to being to be the creative director for the entire of Lucasfilm, as Kathleen Kennedy, who's been one of the people involved in Star Wars and Lucasfilm for many, 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 many years, is stepping down from her position as president of Lucasfilm. So she's out, and Dave Filoni is in. I'm really happy with the announcement. I think this has been on everyone's wish list, especially longtime Star Wars fans, for a long, long time to see Dave Filoni take over Star Wars because he was meant to run Star Wars because he understands it better than anybody else. You just have to watch his documentary on him, the documentaries he's done from behind the scenes videos on any of the stuff he's worked on, whether it's been Rebels, it's been Clone Wars, and especially The Mandalorian, like where he goes into discussing his thoughts on the prequel trilogy and especially during the original trilogy with Return of the Jedi and stuff. Like he truly understands Star Wars, so this is absolutely fantastic news. But he's not meant to be running the company by himself. He's going to be running it alongside Lin-Wen Brennan, who's been one of the other people involved in Lucasfilm for a very long time, with her effectively running the business aspects of the company. So it's kind of two people running the company together, but in two very different divisions. Dave Filoni handling the creative side of things, and Lin Brennan handling the business side of things, in the way that in DC Studios, James Gunn and Peter Safran are running both aspects of the business. James Gunn running the creative, Peter Safran running the business side of things. It's also happening in Disney as well, with Pixar run by Pete Docter and Jim Morris, and in the Walt Disney animation side of things, run by Jared Bush and Clark Spencer. Now, just to get down a little bit in who Kathleen Kennedy is, she's been a longtime producer for a lot of films that George Lucas has been involved in, from Indiana Jones to E.T. and George Lucasfilm back in 2012, taking over the Star Wars side of things when alongside George Lucas, and even after George Lucas stepped down from Lucasfilm and gave it across to Disney. Dave Filoni on the other end of that had been mentored by George Lucas and described by George Lucas as the son that he wished he had, having came up through the world of animation with shows such as The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels. Highly recommend watching both those shows. They are fantastic. And eventually teaming up with Jon Favreau on the live action side of things with The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and all the other projects that have their names attached to them, excluding The Acolyte. If you ever want to find out a Star Wars production, just keep on the lookout for Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni attached to those projects. That's when you know that's when you know they're fully involved in that creatively, or involved in a creative side of things, just to ensure that everything is running consistently, and anything that's not attached to them is like you don't have to worry about that too much. But would recommend getting into them though. So just to also address the other bit of that, with Disney obviously having Lucasfilm all those years back and saying like, oh, Disney's going to ruin Star Wars and like all that kind of stuff. I understand totally that that Star Wars had their run of problems, as has Disney in the past. But look, just because you happen to be at the top 1 minute doesn't mean you're going to stay up there for the rest of your life. Eventually, you're going to hit the bottom at some stage in your life. Just like life is not meant to be fair, and whoever said life was fair is lying. When life when life gets you knocked down, or when life knocks you down, or when we fall down in the mud, the trick is to get back up and always move forward. So this isn't the first time that Disney or any company that for that matter has fallen down, and this certainly won't be the last. Same has been true with Star Wars, but based on the information with Dave Filoni taking charge and everything, to a lot of or maybe some Star Wars fans, it's now pushing in a positive direction. Even though I personally felt like it was never I didn't think that Star Wars was in any real problems to begin danger to begin with, or being heading into like total disaster area. It's I've enjoyed a lot of the Star Wars stuff that's come out since since the sequel trilogy happened, even after the original and the prequel trilogy happened. and stuff. I've enjoyed a lot of the stuff that's come out. Some stuff maybe just a little bit more than others, but not going to get into that too much. But now, next big question that everyone is wondering, what projects are still going to be happening in Star Wars, and what projects are have they been discussing about or they made announcements about that are kind of in a state of limbo now pending, of course, with Dave Filoni taking charge of the entire thing. Well, first project off the rank that we know we're going to get this year in a few months' time is Maul's Shadow Lord, coming out on April the 6th, 2026, with Sam Witwer coming back as the voice of Darth Maul and set after the events of the Clone Wars, but years before Star Wars Rebels, as we all know what happens to Darth Maul at the end of Star Wars Rebels. Not going to get into that too much for anyone who hasn't seen it, but if you know, you know. So, and I've seen the trailer for it. I'll post a link in the description below. It is fantastic. It goes what it to me it actually goes way harder than anything I think we've seen in Star Wars, even more so than Andor for that matter. But that's just my opinion though. But that's the first project off the rank, more Shadow Lord. Next big project we know is coming is the Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming up on the 22nd of May this year. Now we know they're going to be pushing into doing films in Star Wars again because for the longest time after the sequel trilogy ended, we mostly had, of course, TV shows. Now this is going to be Star Wars slowly building themselves back to films in cinemas again. So Mandalorian and Grogu makes perfect sense. It's been one of the best Star Wars shows and one of the best things to come out of Star Wars in years. So it makes perfect sense for them to slowly take that out of television and move that into the movie side of things. Whether or not they're going to continue to do TV shows with the Mandalorian and Grogu characters, obviously they will, but whether we're going to get to see a Mandalorian season 4, that's anyone's guess. Next project off the rank that has been discussing about a fair bit, and we've also got first looks of, is the Starfighter series with Ryan Gosling coming out on May the 28th, 2027, and directed by Sean Levy, who most of you will remember as the man responsible for the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, who's did a fantastic job on that movie. It was so amazing, and he's a really solid director. I can't wait to see what this film is like. And it's going to be set years after the events of the sequel trilogy, and it acts as like a standalone film. So they'll continue to do movies within the continuity of whatever Star Wars part of the timeline is, whether it's the original trilogy or years after the sequel trilogy, or well before the original trilogy, like Knights of the Old Republic, as kind of like standalone projects, and some projects that are going to be connected to other from one project to another, like Ahsoka, Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and of course the Dave Filoni movie, which I'll get into talking about a little bit later. So, effectively, in a nutshell, we'll have connected movies and kind of standalone projects in different parts of the Star Wars timeline, all meant to feel very different from each other. That's the other that's the other big thing right there, is that it just depends on what you want Star Wars to look and feel like at the end of the day. Me personally, I'm up for anything they decide to give to us as long as it feels very, very different from the last project and doesn't feel like it's a copy of everything that's come before them. Try to make something as fresh as possible, but at the same time, honor what came before in Star Wars. Next project off the rank is the Ninth Jedi series as part of Star Wars Visions. So for anyone out there that's been watching Star Wars Visions, seeing Star Wars finally embrace Japanese animation, as well as the different animation styles like we saw in Volume 2, but more so Japanese anime in in Star Wars Visions with Volume 1 and Volume 3, and wanting to see them expand on the stories rather than just doing short films, we're getting that in the Ninth Jedi series. They haven't confirmed a release date for that yet, but obviously because animation takes a long time to do, it could possibly happen by either next year or the year after that. But I'm gonna have to wait and see till more news starts to come out on that. Next project of the rank is Ahsoka Season 2, with all the cast and crew from Season 1 coming back, with of course a couple of recastings, in particularly Rory McCann taking over Ray Stevenson, may he rest in peace, as Balin's Skull. Dave Filoni has been talking a lot about recasting with Rory McCann after Ray Stevenson passed away, and even got pretty emotional with discussing about that and how difficult of a decision it was to come to that choice. But Balin Scott was a huge part of season 1 and is a bigger part of season 2, of course. So it made perfect sense to recast with another actor. Rory McCann is a fantastic actor in general, and he was also a close personal friend of Ray Stevenson. So you have to imagine what is going through his mind, taking over for one of his closest friends in this is like, I'm happy to do this. It's very difficult for me, but I will try to honor what my friend did and give off the performance to the best of my ability as an actor. So I'm really excited for Ahsoka season two, based on what everyone has been talking about. With obviously, we're going to get Hayden Christensen coming back as Anakin Skywalker. Reportedly, Ewan McGregor coming back as Obi-Wan Kenobi, just pulling in from all the biggest moments from the prequel trilogy. So for anyone wanting to see the prequel stuff make it into Ahsoka because of how important she is to the prequel side of things, it sounds like we're going to get that in Ahsoka season two. Next big project is the Dave Filoni movie that Dave Filoni is working on, of course. That's gonna be the interconnected film, or the film that's gonna bring together all the storylines that we've seen in Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, effectively all the stuff that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have been involved in since the Mandalorian series happened. And not surprising, it sounds like it's going to end up being their version of the Thrawn trilogy. So, for anyone out there who hasn't read the Thrawn trilogy, I would highly recommend reading it. It is fantastic. Even though it happens to be part of the expanded universe, Dave Filoni is looking across from every part of the Star Wars continuity to bring to something new to the Star Wars universe, which actually brings into this next point. What, why is it that Disney has decided to make the expanded universe not part of the Star Wars films, like from the original and the prequel trilogy? This wasn't just Disney's decision. You have to remember this, Disney was not the first one to come up with this. It actually goes back to George Lucas saying about the expanded universe when after the original trilogy ended and years before the prequels even happened, when we started getting the expanded material from the books to the games to the comics, all that sort of stuff. George Lucas saw the films as his universe and the expanded part as another universe. So, because he was not involved in it creatively from any stretch of the imagination, so anything that he had nothing to do with creatively is like, you know what? I'm just going to see that off as a part of the as another part of a universe, as another universe somewhere. It's not nothing to do with what I've created. So Disney was just honoring what George Lucas had to say about it, but now Dave Filoni is looking across at all the expanded universe material and saying, you know what? Why aren't we digging from this? Let's take a look into this and let's bring it into the main universe and stuff. And obviously, thanks to Ahsoka doing alternate galaxies, that can be their way to do films and TV shows as one-off projects as part of the adapting the expanded universe material. That'll be their way to easily do that. Next big thing, what about the other projects they announced as part of the Star Wars celebration they did a number of years back with all the projects that they've announced, whether it's like James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi, Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie, all the other projects like that. So, as we all know, one of the films that they announced was the new Jedi Order movie with Daisy Ridley coming back as Rey. They haven't been making that many announcements about it, but obviously Kathleen Kennedy has been talking a little bit about it, saying it's somewhat alive. Same with James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie. Same with Simon Kinberg's Star Wars trilogy, which is meant to be after the events of the sequel trilogy. Same with Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie, which I know when everyone hears that name is going to be like they're going to start running for the hills. But I will say this about Taika Waititi. He's actually a really fantastic director. He's just got a very particular style when it comes to his filmmaking, but he knows how to do serious stuff as well. Take a look at the finale from The Mandalorian season one. And I know everyone is thinking of Thor Love and Thunder and just having that hang above his head for the rest of his life. Just because you've got one bad project in your entire catalog doesn't mean it's going to define you for the rest of your career or for the rest of your life. Look at all the other directors in the best directors of all time, from Steven Spielberg to Martin Scorsese. Let me know in the comments below if you can think of any movies that they've delivered that have been absolute disasters or not even up to their own standards. Just because they happen to be solid directors doesn't mean they don't make mistakes, and doesn't mean that they don't deliver on bad projects every now and then, but they're not going to let that define them for the rest of their lives or for the rest of their careers. Same with Taika Waititi. And of course, now onto the Lando movie or TV show. Whether it's going to happen as a movie or a TV show, honestly, no idea. I know that Donald Glover is has been pushing for this for a long, long time because he was one of the best parts of the solo Star Wars movie, and and makes an Orlando Calrissian movie or TV show makes perfect sense. But but as for all those other projects, as you have to remember, this was under when Kathleen Kennedy was in charge, and of course now that Dave Filoni is in charge of the whole thing, every project that comes his way, whether it's been brand new, whether it's been in development for a long, long time, or like any project that's been silently cancelled, hint, hint, Kylo Ren, is going to have to go through to him personally and he has to give the tick of approval whether or not it's going to get made, whether it's going to get made or not. And then he has to bring that to the people in charge of Disney for that. As like any other company, every boss has a boss. And also you have to remember with Disney, just and which I know is not everyone's favorite company at the moment, as is many other companies, just this isn't the first time that Disney has had crash and burn moments in the entire run of the business. Just because you're a top, just like I said earlier, just because you're at the top 1 minute doesn't mean you're going to stay up there for the rest of your life. You're going to fall down hard when you least expect it. But the trick is, in life, when you get knocked over, get up and keep moving forward. And Disney has shown that when they've fallen down, they always try to pick themselves back up and try to fix their mistakes along the way. Just as I said, life isn't meant to be fair. But here's my question out there for everyone wondering, how excited are you to see Dave Filoni taking charge of Star Wars from a creative perspective? I think this is fantastic news and something we should have gotten from Star Wars a long, long time ago, but never too late, as they say. And what projects are you most excited to see from the Star Wars universe for this year or next year? I'm really excited for Ahsoka Season 2, and I'm really excited for the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, but also for the more Shadow Lord series. That is going to go really hard. But as I said, I'm excited for all the stuff that's coming forward in Star Wars and all the other stuff that's going to come after that. It's going to come down to, at the end of the day, what you want Star Wars to look and feel like. It's it's going to depend on that from one person to another. I'm I of course have no expectations on what's to come for this, and I'm trying to keep as open mind as possible for everything Star Wars related going forward. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check out the links below, and don't forget to comment below what has been your favorite Star Wars project and what are you most excited for in Star Wars. Thank you all so much for watching. This is Simon signing off. Bye for now.